Welcome to our first episode of Relatable Adjacent. Who knew we'd be sitting here? Um, Hello, everyone viewing, if there are
Hello.
any of you out there.
My God, 20 years later?
More than 20 years later.
Oh,
Um,
that's
how long have we been
awful.
friends now, Roxy? No, actually, I can figure this out mathematically. I want to say 28.
It's about right.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Sounds about right. We were a very young ex at that
We were
point.
very young. Well,
We
baby
probably
about
didn't even
Gen
know we
X.
were ex actually at that point.
No, I did. I did.
Did you? I
Oh,
don't think
yeah.
I. That's funny.
I was very
Yeah.
loud and proud about it, too. Um, Yeah. For those of you that are new to the channel, this is a conversation between two Gen Xers about Gen X and everything that encompasses, for lack of a better way to put it. We'll be all over the show on this. Obviously, I have an American accent, but it's a little muddled, and I use words that are from the other side of the Pacific. I've been in Australia and New Zealand for the better part of almost 13 years now, so you'll hear words potentially if you're a US audience member that don't sound right. Feel free to ask in questions and comments. Anyway,
I'm in LA, born and raised.
yeah,
So
I'm in Melbourne, so we're covering both sides of the Pacific here. So anyway, so today's conversation is about cartoons we grew up on, specifically the weird anchor that is between watching the Flintstones and the Jetsons, two very 1950s families, very different parts of the space-time continuum, for lack of a better way to put it, and how that influenced us and what our other cartoon tastes were and how that affected us as Gen Xers. Um,
mhm.
Something that everyone watches cartoons still to some degree, but it's not the same consumption model that we grew up with, which was that
Can I just
definitive
say
Saturday morning. Go ahead.
I'm very proud of my cartoons, and I'm going to lift up my camera really quick. And there you go.
Ooh,
I know,
nice.
raining cats and dogs. So other people have degrees on their walls. I have my favorite cartoon poster. So there you go.
Nice. No,
My
cartoons were
love of
definitely.
language started there.
Yes, absolutely. So, what was your favorite cartoon growing up, Roxy? If you could narrow it down to a single one or a top three?
I mean, that's definitely one of them. Obviously, it's on my wall, which is It's Raining Cats and Dogs. And that's all on 19. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I have.
You can go to VMEO to see it. I don't think you can see the whole thing on YouTube, but you can see snips. It's a play on language. So it's this guy who's talking slang the entire time. Like, I carried on with the big on my back. I mean, it's very, very literal. Um, that was my part of language. I definitely think I was a Jetsons girl. Definitely that's, Hanna-Barbera, but I'm classic Bugs Bunny too.
Fair.
Um, I, I don't know about you, but watching Bugs Bunny, I think once I turned 20 something, I think at that point I realized half of the jokes. I just remember like as a kid, they had, Bugs Bunny with somebody and a, it was a board and it had a screw and it had a ball. And not until I understood as an adult that it was Screwball is that when he was talking about that character as a kid, I'm going, yeah, okay, what? And I moving right along. So it's one of those that has not lost its charm for me, just for that reason, because I can still find things and see the creativity of the animators and writers at that time.
Yeah.
So, which was yours?
Oh, so many. I mean, I was that religious get up every Saturday morning, get a ridiculously large bowl of cereal, and turn on the TV, and it was like my safe space for like hours. Um, Occasionally, my brothers would come in and attempt to interrupt, but being the oldest, I was able to regulate, and it was my space definitively. I was definitely more a Jetsons person than a Flintstones person. I watched both.
Mhm.
Um, I really love the concept of the flying car. I loved the food Araka cycle, I think is what it was called. I was like, I just want to press some buttons and like anything I want comes out. Being a foodie, I thought that was amazing, even though I wasn't aware I was a foodie at the time.
Mhm.
Um, the more classic cartoons, obviously Bugs is an amazing character. I love Daffy Duck as well. I really loved the Roadrunner, truthfully. I loved Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. There was something very cheeky about the Roadrunner that I just really appreciated. But I also just genuinely admired the tenacity of Wile E. Coyote. You know, I mean, every episode he should have died at least 100 times, but yet he keeps coming back, just trying to get this Roadrunner. It's like, bro, stop. You clearly aren't going to get him. But every episode was right back at it again with some weird product from Acme to,
The Acme bomb, the Acme anvil, the Acme dynamite sticks.
yeah.
And you know what? They used it in Bugs Bunny too. What was it with Acme? I guess it was the 40s and Acme was a war thing.
I don't know, actually. I've never researched it, but I assume it was like a safe fake name. It's like why does every phone number in the movie start with 555? Because no one uses that, is what I would assume. There
Yeah.
was, I'll have to find the video and I'll send it to you. It was a YouTube clip on the background artwork of Hanna-Barbera's content. And I'm doing it a disservice by not remembering the name, but there was these amazing pieces because the cartoons themselves couldn't exist with the background, but the backgrounds can exist separate from the cartoons in the
Hmm.
sense that it's like it's a pastoral pictorial of a scene or a scape, and it could absolutely stand on its own as a piece of art. And one of them was this ridiculously large cannon, and the vantage point was looking down on top of the cannon from the back of the cannon as it's hanging off the side of a cliff face, pointing
Yep.
straight down to the road where the roadrunner is going to, in theory, get shot. And I'm like, I want that as a piece of artwork. I think that would be amazing.
I think those cells probably sell for quite a bit.
I
I'm
would
sure
imagine
people
so.
have them on the, I mean, yeah, and they are quite a, I think it rivals Disney when it comes to the artwork. I think it's just as good.
Yeah,
Um, definitely I think it's just as good. So what, and maybe you can help me with this. I know that the Flintstones were prime time. I know they had an 8 o'clock slot, I think on CBS. So, do you know if the Jetsons did?
I
I
don't
can remember Jetsons.
remember the Jetsons doing. I mean, ironically enough, the Flintstones came out in the '60s originally, so this is even before we were born. But they were so heavily featured in reruns, it seemed like new content to us. Great business model, make the stuff once and sell it to generation after generation. But yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah.
the Jetsons also started in the '60s and then had a reprisal in the '80s. Um, but I couldn't say what time slots they were in. I mean, it was
Yeah, yeah, I know Flintstones, surprisingly enough, had a top time slot, which until you saw South Park, I think nowadays, or any of the, I can't think of them all, but all the primetime ones. South Park is just
yeah,
one of the largest ones I know of, but that
yeah,
could take that 8 o'clock slot, right? Um, but I don't, to me, that was so unusual that it had, I mean, the fact that adults were sitting there, because a lot of times at 8 o'clock, kids were already in bed or going to bed. So it
yeah,
was geared towards adults. So, and I think it's held up, that sense of having a best friend, being, a good neighbor, knowing you're going to fight all the time with your spouse and the girl always wins. Um,
yeah,
Wilma and Betty always won. They always kept the peace and they always won.
yeah,
Um, which I think is also interesting that even though they were family shows and both of them showed that the guy or the male character went out and made all the money for the family, the woman still, they were both characters really strong. They could stand on their own, which I think
yeah.
was definitely as a Gen X, going back to that, I think that's one of the ways I think, at least for girls, I think we realize like we could stand on our own.
Yeah,
Um,
no, absolutely. I'd never looked at it like that, but that makes a lot of sense because I think, I mean, my mom's not from the Gen X era, but, very tough, resourceful, independent woman. But I think a lot of women or young women coming up as Gen X would have seen that as a, hey, no, I'm on equal footing. I'm able to make my own decisions and whatnot, even though is late. Oh, I think it was what 78 when women could get their own credit cards finally without their husbands signing for it, which is insane, but whatever.
I think so.
Um, but Gen X was truly the first generation of equality, I think,
Yeah,
from my
I
perspective.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What about you? What did you learn from watching these?
Um, I suppose, well, certainly tenacity from Wile E. Coyote. I didn't damage myself as badly or have so many half-baked schemes to achieve whatever outcome I was looking for, but Um, certainly, probably not for the best of reasons, but I learned that you can survive many a thing that you shouldn't. Boys tend to be very rough and tumble, for lack of a better way to put it, and I was no different. Uh, I broke myself regularly and jumped off bike jumps that were not safe. Um, and because I was always a bigger kid, it might have been weight rated for someone, but not me. So. I remember very distinctly my buddy James and I, we built a bike jump in front of his house and he jumped off it, no problem. And I went to jump off it and the bike jump collapsed like mid me
Oh,
on the ramp. And
oh,
I went ass over tea kettle and straight into a tree and broke my collarbone and got a concussion. But
your
you get
mom
up and
must have
dust it
been
off.
so thrilled about
Oh, my
that.
mom was in Jamaica on a holiday, and so
Oh,
we had the babysitter, and the babysitter's like, "You'll be fine." And the next day, I'm like, "My arm feels like it's gonna fall off. Can you take me to the doctor?" And so she did, and they're just like, "Oh, you have a broken collarbone and you're concussed." They didn't say concussed then; they
oh,
said concussion. But yeah. So needless to say, eventually my mom called it because before cell phones, of course, too. So
right.
she was totally oblivious for a couple of days and found out, Tom yet again has found himself in the emergency room because it was a weekly occurrence. My mom was on a first name basis with all the ER doctors and things like that. I mean, I was regularly destroying myself with no regard for my well-being. And that's probably Wile E. Coyote's fault, truthfully. I blame Wile E. Coyote. Um,
I think we're gonna blame, or not blame, but I think the Gen X, all the videos out there show us is very tough. And if you look at it, we did have the cartoons where everybody, I mean, good Lord, how many times did Daffy Duck get blown up?
right? Shot in the
I mean,
face with a shotgun by Elmer Fudd.
and then just can't, I mean, I think we saw this degree of violence and cartoons that I don't think you've seen,
Absolutely.
right?
No,
Even
no, no.
and sometimes they get hurt. Like I remember Wile E. Coyote kind of bandaged up for like, a second or two, and
Yeah.
then the next scheme he was fine. Um, so we saw that, but really it was kind of like, okay, we're going to show you all this violence and there's no consequence whatsoever. You're going to come back just fine, no
Just
problem.
fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Just fine.
Exactly. No, I definitely think that's part of it, and I
Yeah.
never really drew that connection until just now. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the toughness of I mean there's so many reasons we're tough, but we're concentrating on cartoons, but I think that was the cornerstone of the Gen X tough. Not only were we latchkey kids, not I mean think of that too, we were at home watching cartoons and our parents probably were not home,
No.
so that was one way, right, that we sort of spent our time.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I remember being a kid because it was, definitively that Saturday morning cartoon block, but there was cartoons from like 2:30 until like 5 when your parents got home. And I suppose that was kind of the first incarnation of a digital babysitter before kids got handed iPads. We knew that
yep.
if we got home, we'd have cartoons from 2:30 to 5. And some of those cartoons were, wildly, well, not addictive, but we were very much fans of those cartoons. So it was a race to get home and watch them in many cases.
Mhm. And then we
Um,
had Super Friends, don't forget, on the weekends.
no, Super Friends, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, we were the first ones. I mean, now they have all the Marvel and all the DC, right, with all the movies, with all the characters. And it's like, yeah, that was us that created that were watching that and are creating these now movies on that. All these action films was really coming from what we were watching on Saturday mornings.
Absolutely. Well, you got to figure like J.J. Abrams and the like would have been inspired as kids and young adults and watching those cartoons and the idea that they could make a live action version of, Spider-Man or Thor or whoever your favorite comic book character was.
Hmm.
Um, it would have to be an amazing homage and a way to give tribute to something that you enjoyed so much as a kid.
Yeah, totally. I think that's yeah. I mean, I just look at it and you look at obviously these have the effects and stuff, but back to the Jetsons. I mean, I remember as a kid, definitely the food was one kind of cool aspect. And then, oh my God, here we have the microwave, right? And and I think when they thought of it, I mean, they still had, did they still have, I think they had automats still in the 60s, which if any of you are wondering what an automat is, it was like a like a cafeteria you would walk into, and it was just rows and rows and rows, and it had little windows, and you could lift up the window and pull the food out, and then whoever was back there put another one in and shut the window. So I think those were automats. And so people would go and it would be like 10 cents for a slice of pie or something, and you would walk around. And so I think that's where the whole microwave idea came up.
Interesting.
It's
Okay.
you open the door and you saw that in the Jetsons. It's like, well, that kind of makes sense because it was kind of the time period where it was just going a step further.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes a lot of sense. I've never been to a proper automat, and I've watched a documentary on them, so I think the concept is really cool. I've not been to Japan yet, but I know that Japan has got, machines for
yep,
as far as the eye can
everything.
see, everything, hot, cold food, beer,
Yep.
um,
And
et
then some.
cetera. And
Yeah.
then some, yeah.
And then some. And some
They'll keep it.
X-rated stuff too that you
I've
just go,
heard that's yeah, I was like, we'll stop there before we get
we'll
too.
stop there, but you can literally get an X-rated whatever and just go to the automat and pick it
Yep.
out and the vending machine. And yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it was definitely Japan definitely took that concept and ran with it to the nth degree, I think,
Yeah.
compared to us.
Yeah.
Um, but the flying cars, definitely. That's
Yeah.
coming.
Oh, I know
That's
we're getting close. We're getting close.
we're basically, I think Japan is actually really getting there, right?
Now there's a couple of companies that are out there and they've got working prototypes. It's just getting approval and a lot of approvals because you got to be able to be roadworthy and safe on the ground, but you also have to be safe in the skies. And Lord knows there's plenty of stuff flying around. I mean, I'm still kind of mortified that a drone operator hit one of those Canadian water scooping planes. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not cool, but I could see wanting to put a drone up to like witness those planes are magic. I mean, they're ugly as sin to look at, but they are highly effective.
Yeah. Yeah,
And those
absolutely.
pilots are just, whoo, hats off to them. That is some dangerous, scary work.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I know how to fly, and
Yeah.
it can be scary up there, and it doesn't take much to lose your balance, surprisingly enough. But you're talking to everyone up there, right? Um, which again, as we grew up, I remember going on a Pan Am flight when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
wow.
I must
That's,
have been 6, maybe, with a Pan Am stewardesses and looking just the way they did in the movies, and everybody was really nice, but it was like it was still exciting to be in a plane because they were still not, and God knows going overseas, which we were, we weren't flying in the United States, we're going to Central America. So that was a big deal.
yeah, I
Of
believe
course,
that.
long distance calls were a big deal too, but
Oh, yeah. We'll save that for another episode. But wow, yeah, the long distance calls. The fact that we can have this conversation and we're whatever, I think like 10,000 miles apart, video, audio, we're recording it. You know, we're like whatever, like even 15 years ago, you would be like calling 10 10 220 or something, or, to make an international call for some discounted rate as opposed to the main carriers.
And now look at us. We're not even using a, a phone carrier, not
Exactly. Exactly.
it's a
Speaking of phone carriers, and not to completely get off topic, but they're going to shut down Skype. Microsoft is going to shut down Skype after all these years and going to fold it into Teams. I just read the article the other day. I was like, I suppose it makes sense, but Skype, the first video.
I don't think I have used Skype 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, I still use it for a couple people, but
Really?
yeah. Well, I find that everyone has their preferred medium of
Oh,
communication,
yeah.
and so I've got Messenger and WhatsApp and Signal and Telegraph. It's too many, but yeah. Anyway,
Way too many. Way too many.
way too many, way too many. So, but yeah. Well, getting back on, I knew we'd get off topic at some point, but we always do. That's all right. So cartoons. Back to cartoons, everybody.
I like cartoons. You were Jetsons, you said?
I was definitely more Jetsons. I mean, they were kind of the same story in my mind. It was that picturesque, what prototypical 1950s family. Um, both, the male protagonists didn't really enjoy their job. I
Right.
remember Spacely Sprockets was, seemingly, and Mr. Spacely was a particularly harsh boss, and
Yep.
things like that. So, I mean, some of the tropes of those cartoons still hold true today, I would imagine, and it was very relatable to any viewer, especially the parents. So, I think where really good cartoons have always kind of held their own is that the kids can enjoy it, but the parents can too. And there's inside jokes that, like you said, you didn't get Bugs Bunny or some of the stuff until you were 20. Um, what's been really fun is watching like Pixar movies again with our kids that are now adults and going like, oh, okay. And they're picking up things that they didn't notice.
That's the
Yeah.
fun part.
It's just like so many very adult inside jokes hide in those in plain sight. But if you don't know, you don't know, as they say. But yeah, no, definitely more a Jetsons one fan. Trying to think of other ones that I really liked. I was a huge fan of I mean, I liked G.I. Joe and He-Man and all the
Yeah.
prototypical boy ones. I really fell in love with one called Robotech, which was it was a
Hmm.
Japanese anime that had got um, dubbed into English. So it only ran for a couple seasons in the States. I mean, the Robotech and that genre of anime is so big in Japan, but that one I really enjoyed. I mean, it was like I would be sitting there waiting to get in. I was wearing my football pads because I was going to football practice, immediately following. And like the latest we could leave was about the same time the cartoon ended. And I would be sitting there full, not helmet on, but shoulder pads, all the football gear, my 2 liter bottle of water frozen so that it could melt as
Right.
practice started. As you
Yep.
did, that was your water bottle as a kid, folks. That was a 2 liter bottle
Yep.
of water frozen the night before. And
Yep.
if you
Still
weren't
do it
careful,
on occasion.
yeah, no, it's really handy. Just
Mhm.
don't spear yourself with the resulting icicle at the end. Uh, but yeah, I would sit there and I'd be like watching it intently, wearing my uniform, and my stepfather who had come to pick us up to take us to football would he'd be like yelling at me to get to the car, and I'm like, just 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes.
It's the way it always was. It was like 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
just let me get to
that
the end
was
of the episode.